Welcome to the Collaborative. I'm your host, Sydnee Walker, along with Ryan Ballis. Today, we are joined by ESPN NFL analyst Ryan Clark. Clark appears on NFL Live, Get Up and SportsCenter, and is co-host of DC and RC, The Pivot, and FaceFirst. His playing career spanned 13 NFL seasons and included a Super Bowl title and 2 AFC Championships. Clark graduated from Louisiana State University with a degree in mass communications. Welcome.
Oh, thank you very much. That was so formal. You know, you never know how people are going to introduce you. I feel I should have worn a suit or something if I was going to be introduced in such a formal way.
No, you're fine. Now for the fun. First up, we have Sid's This or That Louisiana edition. So first up, okay. Gumbo or jambalaya?
Gumbo, easy.
Oh man, I'm going jambalaya.
No, that's because you don't know nothing. That's all that is. You're too young. You're not experienced enough to know what that good bowl of gumbo hit like when it get a little cold.
All right. Crawfish or oysters?
Oh, crawfish all day. It's not even. It's about the experience too. One, crawfish tastes better. They're less slimy, even though I do like oysters. But crawfish is truly about the experience. You know, sit down with your family, sit down with your friends. You know, having some drinks, talking, sharing a moment. And obviously they still taste good. You know, if you get the right ones that make your nose run just a little bit, if they're perfect, but I'm going crawfish all day.
Sorry, another strike here. I'm choosing oysters.
Oh my God.
All right, Pittsburgh or Baton Rouge?
Oh, that's tough. That's tough. I'm gonna have to go Baton Rouge though. I'm gonna go Baton Rouge for this reason. It's in Louisiana. That's my home state. Pittsburgh was great to me, but I didn't necessarily choose Pittsburgh. You know, I chose to attend Louisiana State University. I chose to make Baton Rouge home, where I still am, and so I'm gonna have to go Baton Rouge on that one.
All right, good answer. And last but not least, the most important one: beignets or bananas Foster?
Oh, now see, this is a very layered question. I'm a dessert guy, right? And beignets are great. Now, you can't wear nice clothes and eat beignets because you get powder everywhere. And if you would have said something like bananas Foster's bread pudding, then you win, right? So it just all depends on where and what type of banana Foster's we're talking. Bananas Foster's French toast. So I guess if I can do all these different things with bananas Foster's, I'm gonna go with that, bananas Foster.
There we go. That's my answer as well. I will drive to Copeland's any day and get some bananas Foster.
I just want to put it out there that I'm with you on the crawfish and the bananas Foster situation, all right? And the gumbo as well, all right? I can get with the gumbo.
Smart man, very smart man.
This is actually the first time I've ever interviewed someone with the same name as me, so I gotta say, man, you got one fine hell of a name. But thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate it. But ever since, you decided to retire, Ryan, it seems like you've really done everything but that. Can you talk about how you made your way into broadcasting and analysis? Was that something you kind of always envisioned yourself doing, that light at the end of the tunnel after I get out of sports? This is what I want to do, or did it kind of fall into your lap and you've kind of ran with it?
Well, I went to, I attended the Manship School of Communications at LSU. So I had done some broadcasting, some different things like that, just in school, right? And doing some different projects, but it wasn't necessarily what I thought I'd do once I retired. I always wanted to be a football coach. It's all I've ever wanted to do, but I had kids very young. And so my son was entering high school when I retired and he was going to play football. And I wanted to be able to be there on Friday nights for him as well. And so I always knew that was a goal for me, but probably in about 2010 or 11, I got an opportunity to go on First Take, and it went really well. And I did what's called the car wash at ESPN. All of that went well. And the next Monday, I get a call, from an agent that says, "We think we can get you paid to do TV while you play." And I was like, "Oh shoot, extra money? I'm with it." So I did it for 2 years while I was still playing. Immediately signed a contract, once I was done with football, and it just kind of came naturally. I was at LSU for Pro Day last week, and I was talking to the sports information director, which is actually the job I wanted. I wanted to be the guy in college that when a kid had a hard day or a bad game was the person walking him over and explaining to him how he should present to the media, or how he can, portray himself or be perceived, based on what he says. And so I always wanted to do that. And he was laughing because every time we lost a game in college, he always made me speak. Like, he always made me talk because he felt like I could always have the right message. And I do think that those experiences started to help me build toward having this career.
That's super awesome. And thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that's really a route we're seeing a lot of current players do as well. Like, we interviewed Cam Jordan a couple of months ago as well. And, he was just on Get Up the past 2 mornings as well. And I think it's a really open route that a lot of current players, no matter what sport they're in, are embarking on. And it's really cool to see, not only I think from, the analysis perspective, but that's a whole different career field. I think it's super awesome.
So your podcast, The Pivot, alongside Shannon Crowder and Fred Taylor, has gained a large fan base in a short amount of time. One of the episodes that stands out the most is a conversation with Michael Beasley regarding mental health. In a world where mental health is often not talked about amongst Black men, what did it mean for you to create that supportive environment?
I could be honest. When each guest sits down, you really never know what energy the interview is going to take on. It's honestly going to be as open or as vulnerable as the guest is willing to be. And Michael was just 100% open with us. He was transparent, and it was really a blessing to us. I think all of us learned something from him. And, we still reach out to him all the time. We still just check in on him just to see how he's doing. And that was truly the show that I think changed how people saw us as interviewers, how people saw us as a podcasting space. And it was really a beautiful moment. I don't know necessarily if we believed we were equipped to facilitate a conversation like that, which is why it was truly beautiful. We weren't aiming to speak about mental health. We weren't aiming to have that conversation. I even said in the interview, I was there to talk basketball and to try to help him get an opportunity to get back in the league and speak about how great he was at K-State, how talented of an offensive player that he was. But as soon, as I asked him about building relationships and he started to get into the story of his experiences, that's when we obviously knew it wasn't about basketball anymore. And that wasn't the conversation that neither we needed to have. And so, it's humbling in a way that someone will allow you to be that much a part of their life, that much a part of their sadness, that much a part of their adversity. And it was also enlightening to be able to continue that conversation and give him a space where he felt safe enough to share that way. And so, as we continue to do shows, and as we continue to move, you do feel different energy with everyone. But that will always be special, whether we do it for 5 more months or 5 more years. I don't know if we'll ever have a moment like we had with Michael.
I really applaud you and the team for that episode. It was beautifully done and just really getting him to dig deep. And one thing you brought up, we are asked because of talent to carry everybody. We are not made to carry everybody. I just thought that was a really powerful line. And regardless if you're in sports or your career, I think that can resonate with everyone.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think that, to whom much is given, that is true. Much is required. And sometimes I think people even so much further than much is required, much is expected. And, I don't think that we are built to do life alone. I don't think that we are built to carry everyone's burden. And sometimes it feels that way. Sometimes it feels that when you make it or when you're successful, that is the expectation of you. And just the expectation alone can be heavy enough to break a man.
Absolutely. And it was nice to see everyone offer your numbers, come over, hang with the kids. So it was very nice to see.
Thank you. Thank you.
Shifting gears, in 2 weeks, so many young men will have their lives changed by the NFL draft. As a former player, what are you most looking forward to during your draft coverage for ESPN?
I think, it's always about the young men. It's always about their opportunity to instantly change their lives, or to see a dream come true. So many of us start playing this game simply for the love. They're kids that start at 7, at 8. Now they play flag football as little as 5, and it's all they've ever wanted to do. And then now they get this opportunity to hear their name called, and to walk across the stage or sit with their family and answer that phone and hear somebody say, "We choose you." It's a validation for a lifetime, even though it's only 21 years, 22 years, 23 years, whatever. It's a validation of a lifetime of work that someone says you're worthy. Someone says you're worthy enough to wear our colors. You're worthy enough to be a part of our team. You're worthy enough to be drafted. And I think that's what I look most forward to than anything, to understand what it's like to want to be there, and in some cases need to be there, and to see that dream actually realized is amazing. So many of these young men have these stories of triumph that we get to tell on that night, because at least for them, up until that point, it's the ultimate career triumph. But there have been those small little goals that they've attained along the way that make them special humans. And to me, that's the part that excites me, is getting an opportunity to show people who these young men truly are, behind the helmets.
I absolutely love your perspective. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Ryan, you had the opportunity to be around some of the greatest defensive players the league has ever seen, in the likes of Troy Polamalu, Sean Taylor, and a bunch more. But who would you say was your favorite to be around, either, inside the facilities or outside? Who did you vibe with the most and really enjoy your time being around?
Well, Pitts, like Sean and Troy, Sean was one of my closest friends. Troy is probably my best friend, from playing football, guy I talked to the most and was super close to when I played. But I think when, you started to talk about who was the most fun to be around and who you enjoyed your time around, it would just have to be the Steelers defense as a whole. I have a picture in my house. We're at the Super Bowl. It's like 13 or 14 of us. It's raining. We practice at USF. And somebody just snaps a picture, one of our photographers, and we all just, like, we're together. We throw our hands up. Some people are doing stupid things. Some people are just smiling. But that was who we were. It was a group of individuals that probably, other than Troy and James Harrison, weren't necessarily the highest touted, weren't necessarily always the favorite, but we all came together and created something beautiful. We created something, we were one of the best defenses statistically in the last 25 years in 2008. And we finished the deal as well. When Troy was inducted into the Hall of Fame this year, and you had, 25 guys from the defense during that era there to support him, it showed who we were. It showed what we were. We were a family. And I think it's hard to point out one guy that you could just say that relationship, at least from just being around them, was different than everybody else's or more fun. And so I would just say what we had collectively not only shows in how we still are as friends, but the way we were actually able to play.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's super cool to see that, all the way from 2008 to his induction at the Hall of Fame, still having that support group with those friends is something really special.
So Ryan, I read that when you first started in this business, you wanted to show people that you were smart. So you studied hard and did all the right things, but it took away from your personality. How did you find the balance between exceeding in your job while still showing your authentic self?
I stopped caring. That's kind of what happened. And you still study the same way. Like, you still want to be able to have the same knowledge, but I don't care if people think I'm smart. I don't care if, even more so, if people think I'm right, because that was the thing. It was like, you want to study so much. And if they ask you to, be prophetic, or if they ask you a prediction, you have to be right. But then you realize you're predicting people, what I'm saying? And there's a reason that you play the game, and you play the game because it is unpredictable. You play the game because that's the only way we understand and know the outcome. And so that was just a freeing moment for me. And I believe the other part was, if I wasn't going to excel at this job, if I wasn't going to ascend to the heights that I wanted to be, then it's okay if I got to be myself. You know, if I was going to work every day and I was trying to be Dan Orlowski, or I was trying to be Louis Riddick, or I was trying to be Marcus Spears, Teddy Bruschi, I can't be better them than them, right? I can't be better them than they are, but I could be me, right? And I could be the best me. And then what I slowly started to see happening was other people taking pieces of my on-air personality, taking pieces of the way I did the job, and now implementing them into their way. And I don't necessarily, and like the flattering part was this: I don't believe people were trying to do the job like me. I believe being around me, feeling that energy, enjoying certain things, like you just pick up from people. You know what I mean? Like when you're around people that do their jobs well, you pick up on them, whether it's, you know, Dan Orlowski being great, you know, with the telestrator, you know, the touchscreen. You know, I really watch the way that he highlights certain things or how he focuses on this. And you can say, okay, these are pieces from that work well with what I do, whether it's, you know, Marcus and the facial expressions, or Mina and the way she uses numbers. And so I believe we all watch each other in certain ways. But, you know, that was one takeaway for me, that a lot of pieces of my personality and the way that I explain things or painted pictures are now being done by a lot of people who have worked with me or worked around me or seen me work. I think that's extremely flattering because it's just me. You know, I'm not trying to be anyone else. And I think that was truly also when, you know, my career took off.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's awesome that you realize that turning point. And also, I think one of the reasons that makes you so great on TV, along with Marcus, Dan, and many others, you guys have that great camaraderie and banter on TV. It just feels like you're watching your friends. So thank you for sharing some intel into that.
Exactly, to your last point, you know, it seems to be like you're pushing the envelope more and more with everything you're taking on and doing and new projects, but you're always staying true to yourself. And I think that's most evident in your newest podcast that you have with Daniel Cormier, where you're discussing MMA, called DC and RC. Can you talk about how you made that jump from talking football to talking about, you know, mixed martial arts and analyzing it? You know, is that adjustment similar when you're analyzing sports, or is it a totally different ballgame?
Bro, it's a totally different ballgame, man. And people hated me at first. And so it was, you know, it was obviously you go into an arena and it's so crazy. I said this one day when I was hosting First Take and we were in a production meeting, and they kept saying, and so every time they talk basketball, I forget who I was on with. I think maybe like Will Kane or somebody, we were subbing in. And then every time they bring up basketball, they say, we're going to bring in so-and-so, you know? And so I stopped the meeting and I was like, well, look, if you're going to remove me every time we talk about basketball, then I don't want to do it. You know, I said, I don't understand why playing a professional sport, one professional sport, eliminates me from talking about other professional sports when these dudes didn't play anything professionally. I said, so because I actually excelled at something athletically, that eliminates me from being able to talk about other sports and other things? Or do you just feel that because they reported and this and that, they're smarter or have more insight into that? I was like, hell, they watch the games just like I watch the game. And so, you know, that was when I kind of started to do different things. But when I played, I trained jiu-jitsu. I trained in, you know, Kenpo, which is a form of stand-up martial arts. And so I've always loved it. I fell in love with Chuck Liddell and Randy Couture and the Tito Ortiz era, you know, Anderson Silva, obviously John Jones, you know, Rampage Jackson, Lyoto Machida. It was just like, I just loved it. And I was captivated by it. And I would, you know, go by, this is how old I am, guys, I'm sorry. I would go by like the greatest knockout DVDs and watch them. And so I just became a huge fan. And then it became a game for me that every time I'd watch a pay-per-view, I'd try to get my tweet on the screen. So I would just tweet throughout the entire thing. And so what it showed was like, I loved it, you know, and I was such a huge fan. And then when Daniel's former partner, Ariel Helwani, left, they gave him a list of names of people who could possibly be on the show. And I think some of them were actors, other reporters, other athletes. And, you know, the story goes, at least the way they tell me, that he picked me right away, you know? And so I get a call from my boss that runs football, and he just goes, do you want to do an MMA show? And I was like, okay, with who? He was like, Daniel Cormier. I was like, hell yeah, I want to do it. And so it's been an adjustment. and I've had to learn how to be a part of the show in the sense that, I've had to understand that, I don't need to analyze, this guy's striking form, or I don't need to analyze, his ability to counter. Like, I just talk about it like a fan. And then I do have that athlete's perspective on it. And obviously, as you watch more and you're around Daniel DC more, you're around these fighters, you learn certain things. You could throw some of those tidbits in, but also my role is to set DC up to answer the questions that are technical or answer the questions that come from experience. And so as we go along, I think the show gets better and better. We have a great chemistry. He's a Louisiana boy. I'm a Louisiana boy. So that makes it super cool as well. But it's been fun and it's been challenging. I think, man, like I can talk about football in my sleep. Shoot, sometimes on Get Up, I actually am sleep. And so, I could do that part. But it's been really cool, man, to venture into that. We had an opportunity on the pivot. She's coming out. We're dropping an episode with Juliana Pena soon. We're going to do an episode with Dana White as well. And so, that'll be episodes that I get to lead just because I'm so into it. I'm so tapped in now because of doing DC and RC. And so those things are extremely exciting.
Yeah, I think that's so incredible. And listening to y'all's podcast, I mean, it's a perfect 1-2 punch, and it's really engaging to listen to. And I'm not even a podcast guy. Like, I know I run a podcast. We've been doing it for 2 years, and like, I find it hard to listen to ones that I don't really enjoy. And yours is like one of the easiest ones, the most enjoyable to listen to. But to your point, I think it's really interesting too. Like, a lot of athletes have so many other passions and other things they're involved with. Like, I did MMA when I played football in high school, like I practiced it, I almost had a black belt in karate from when I was younger. It's like you have football players who can really hoop or play other sports. And I think it's awesome to get that perspective on it, because while they're not playing the sport, you still have that very unique athlete mentality that no one else can provide. And I think they should definitely start letting more people do that for sure. But I think something that can really define you, at least from my perspective, in one word, would be the term relentless. Your whole career, you were a relentless competitor. You played on a bunch of different teams. And no matter who was in front of you in what position or whatnot, you always found ways to contribute and to help that team win. And where I was wondering, where is that, relentless desire as a competitor kind of gone? Has it transferred into your analysis, or have you found other hobbies and things you enjoy that kind of transfers into? But where's that competitive spark gone to?
Do you know what's so crazy, man? I am now like one of the least competitive people in the world in everything. I train athletes as well. I have a million jobs, man. Like, I have a ton of jobs. I own a training facility, and my training it's called DB Precision. And I started it because, like, when I got old, like, all these young players who want to train with me, and I saw I kind of had a knack for it and understood it, and I loved coaching. And so now I train athletes, and I think a lot of my competitiveness goes there. But it's strange because when I meet young people or young receivers or anybody, and they're like, you can't guard me. I'm like, I absolutely cannot. It's like, I'm freaking 42 and stuff hurts, and so I think the way I see it now, my competitiveness goes to giving out information, right? I want to teach people. I want to help people be their best selves. And so I want to entertain people. I want to bring joy to people. I want to take care of people. And so you use that everywhere, use that in your home, in providing, for your family. You use that in the way that you treat your friends. You use that in the way that you raise, your kids. As far as TV, it's competitive in the sense that I want to be the best, but it's also hard because it's subjective. When you played football, you knew how much you mattered. You knew how much you contributed because you could look at the scoreboard. You could watch the film, and it was obvious. TV is not necessarily like that. Just because people like you, or you have great points, or you work extremely hard, it doesn't mean you're going to get the best jobs, right? It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be paid the most money because, relationships are involved, opinion is involved. And so I haven't necessarily taken away my competitiveness as in how it pertains to how I'm perceived as far as my peers go. That competitiveness goes into just being my best self, right? That competitiveness goes into being a better host on the pivot, on DC and RC, on FaceFirst. That energy goes into being the best trainer. The energy goes into, I have old kids. My daughter's 23. She's graduated. She lives in San Francisco and works. My son is going to be 21 next week. He plays football at Arizona State. My youngest daughter is 17. She's going to be a senior next year. Is to being the best I can for them and being the best version of me that they need, right? Because all your kids are different. And so my competitiveness has gone into figuring out life, figuring out peace, figuring out how to contribute to society in a way where my story doesn't end in 2014 when I retire from football. My story lives on even after my life ends, because life is about how you make people feel and the things you taught them, because those memories they'll keep forever, and the things you taught them they'll pass down to other people. So I really put my energy into that.
That's really beautiful, Ryan. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
That was that was great. Thank you.
Lastly, if you could go back and give your younger self advice, what would it be and why?
Oh, it's heavy. I like that. I think if I could go back and tell my younger self anything, I'd tell him to be less selfish. I'd tell him to understand that even though the goals are set very high, selfishly working toward those goals and missing the memories and missing the opportunities to build certain bonds along the way and make people feel important along the way, those things aren't worth missing focusing at the top, right? Or focusing on the top. That, your own ambition can't supersede the love that you're supposed to give to certain people, the respect that you're supposed to give to certain things. And, I think along the way, you're working so hard and you're taking so much time to reach these goals that you're not always everything you need to be for everybody. And it's hard to do both sometimes. It's hard to find that balance. And so if I had to tell my younger self anything, or shoot, even myself now, would be to find more balance. It would be to pay attention to the little signs of people or things that cry out for your presence, and you're sometimes too focused to give it. There are mornings that you're extremely tired, and unfortunately on those mornings or those days when you don't have a lot to give everywhere, you give it to where your priorities are. And if you only have a little bit to give and your priorities are work, or your priorities are money, or your priorities are success or achievement, then a lot of times your priority aren't people. The successes, the achievements, the money, like I said, you don't really get to take those with you. And as somebody who has said, the last prayer, or at least what he thought was his last prayer in 2007, when I was sick after my sickle cell crisis, and losing organs and different things like that, you kind of should know that, when you're dying, or when you think you're dying, and you say your last prayer, like, you don't pray for like things, you only pray for people. And so I guess my thing would be, take the time for people, take the time to love those who love you most and love you best, and stop and smell the flowers or the roses sometimes, because you never know when that's going to be over.
Beautifully said. That was a wake-up call for me, and I'm sure other people on the call. Sometimes we get so caught up in just working toward our next goal, whatever that may be. We think, oh, our friends will be there, our family will be there. But like you say, you just never know. So thank you for the reminder to take some time and breathe every now and then.
Yeah, for sure. That's a reminder for myself too.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. I think I speak for both Sydnee and myself when I say this is probably one of like the top 2 interviews we've done.
Appreciate it,
absolutely
man.
Incredible. And seriously, man, it was an absolute pleasure to hear all of your wisdom and all the knowledge that you pass along. And truly, it's really a reflection of your character and what you spoke to earlier. Passing that knowledge on. You want that to be your legacy. Thank you.
Nah, man, appreciate you.
It's
guys
hard.
having
It's
me.
hard. It's hard to take. Yeah, man. It's hard to take things away from people sometimes. I feel like, but when you hear someone as genuine and as honest as you want to soak it all up. So thank you. Seriously.
Man, appreciate you guys, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much again, Ryan. It was amazing having you on tonight. Appreciate you taking the time, your insights and passion for everything. I just really appreciate hearing and learning from you. And I hope we can all meet up in the future sometime. So thank you.
Yeah, that was awesome. You guys have a great night.